Every morning, before the diner filled with the clatter of coffee cups and the drone of tired truckers, she would step out the back door with a plate in her hands. Pancakes if she had time, toast if she was rushing, sometimes just fries wrapped in a napkin. The boy would already be there, waiting by the dumpsters, his eyes too large for his thin face, his silence heavier than words. He never asked, never gestured, never begged. He simply accepted what she gave, bowing his head once, carefully, before eating like someone who had learned how to do it without drawing attention. She never asked where he came from or why he never spoke. In her world, people carried secrets like pocket change, light enough to forget until they clinked in the wrong silence. It became their ritual, as ordinary as refilling the sugar jars or wiping down the counters. Some days she found herself cooking a little extra just for him. Some nights she thought about what would happen if the manager caught her. But every morning, he was there, and she couldn't stop herself. That morning, though, the air was different. Heavy. Waiting. She carried the plate out back, eggs, pancakes, a strip of bacon she'd stolen off the griddle. He was there, as always, but his shoulders were tense, his head tilted upward as though listening to something she couldn't hear. And then the sound came, low at first, like thunder rolling in from far away. The boy's eyes widened, and he stepped closer to her, so close his hand brushed her apron. The rumble grew louder, sharper, until the air itself trembled. She staggered as the first helicopter swept overhead, its blades slashing the sky, sending paper napkins and loose gravel into a storm around the diner. Cups rattled inside. Customers shouted. She shielded her face from the dust as two more machines descended, massive and alien, the ground shaking under their weight. Soldiers spilled out, helmets glinting, weapons held with too much purpose. They moved fast, like they already knew where to go. The boy's grip tightened on her apron, small fingers trembling. For the first time since she had known him, he looked terrified, not of hunger, not of loneliness, but of being found. And the waitress realized, with a sudden chill, that their quiet little ritual hadn't been a secret between the two of them at all. The diner was half empty that morning. Two truckers hunched over their eggs, a young couple sat in the corner arguing in whispers, and old Hank was nursing his third cup of coffee without touching his toast. The waitress had just set a plate of hash browns in front of a regular when the sound hit. It wasn't a sound you could ignore. It rattled the windows first, a deep vibration that climbed into the bones. The silverware on the counter danced, coffee rippling in cups. Someone muttered, "Earthquake," but then the blinds slapped against the glass, and the whole room turned to the wide front window at once. Through the dust outside, they came. Helicopters, low and heavy, descending right onto the strip of cracked asphalt that passed for the diner's parking lot. Rotor wash tore across the lot, ripping old flyers from the bulletin board and scattering napkins like snow. Plates shook. The young couple ducked under the table. The waitress stood frozen, her hand still on the coffee pot. But she knew before she looked. The boy. He was in the back booth, knees pulled up, small and quiet as always. She'd been feeding him for months. Pancakes slipped into napkins, sandwiches slid across the counter when no one was looking. He never spoke, never smiled, never asked for more. Just those wide, mute eyes that held on to her like she was the only tether he had. Now, he was trembling. He ducked low under the booth table, curling into himself. His knuckles were bone white as he gripped the seat cushion. The helicopters roared outside, dust churning, the doors opening. Men in dark uniforms spilled out, moving with the precision of people who had done this before. Not cops. Not local authorities. Something else. The waitress's chest went tight. She realized, too late, that she hadn't been feeding just a boy. She had been sheltering someone. Someone the world wanted badly enough to send soldiers in broad daylight. And now, they were walking straight toward her diner. The ground was still shaking when she burst out through the diner's front doors, the sound of rotor blades pounding against her ears. The air outside was chaos, dust whipping against her skin, napkins, and loose menus flying like startled birds. She raised an arm to shield her face, the other hand reaching back, trying to keep the boy behind her. The helicopters had already touched down, massive machines crouched on the asphalt like beasts waiting to strike. Their engines growled, and from their sides poured soldiers, dozens of them, their movements sharp and rehearsed. Helmets glinted in the sun. Rifles pointed downward but ready, always ready. Her heart hammered. She expected shouting, orders barked, guns raised. She expected them to tear the boy from her side. She braced herself for it, her breath shallow, her legs trembling. But then, something she couldn't have imagined. The first soldier reached them, boots crunching against gravel, the dust swirling around him. He stopped 3 paces away, staring at the boy. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his weapon, then went down to one knee. His head bowed. For a moment, she thought it was a mistake, a trick of her terrified mind. But then another soldier dropped to one knee, and another, and another. Within seconds, an entire line of them knelt before the boy, heads bowed as if in prayer. The waitress turned, staring down at the child clinging to her apron. His small chest rose and fell too fast, his eyes wide and wet. And yet, there was something new in the way he stood, something that straightened his thin shoulders. The boy let go of her apron and took one slow step forward. The soldiers did not move. The first soldier, an officer, she guessed, with bars on his chest, lifted his head. His voice, when it came, was quiet but sure, carried over the thrum of the blades. "My lord," he said. The waitress's throat went dry. The boy's hand lifted, trembling, until it brushed the soldier's helmet. A gesture so small, so fragile, yet the officer's shoulders shook as though it carried the weight of a lifetime. The boy looked back at her then, his dark eyes filled with something more than fear. It was a plea, unspoken but clear, a question of whether he should go, or whether she would hold on to him just a little longer. And for the first time since he had entered her life, she wondered who exactly she had been feeding every morning, and why the world would kneel before him. She had always thought of him as just another stray. A hungry child who never spoke, who waited out back in the mornings with his hollow eyes and quiet gratitude. She never pressed him for answers. It wasn't her way. People came and went through the diner, all of them carrying stories too heavy to tell. The boy was no different, at least, that's what she had told herself. But when the helicopters came, the truth shattered her assumptions. The machines touched down with a violence that rattled the diner's windows, shaking coffee out of cups, scattering salt shakers across tables. Dust rolled through the lot, swallowing everything in a storm of grit and sound. The regulars ducked for cover, shouting questions no one could answer. She saw the boy stiffen even before the soldiers appeared. His small shoulders squared, his jaw tightened. Fear was there, yes, but beneath it, something steadier, older, like he had lived this moment before. The side doors of the lead helicopter slammed open, and rows of soldiers emerged, uniforms marked with symbols she didn't recognize. Their boots hit the asphalt in perfect rhythm. They didn't charge. They didn't shout. They lined up in silence. Then, as one, they saluted him. The boy stepped away from her instinctively, his eyes locked on the soldiers. His silence, which she had always taken as weakness or trauma, now carried weight. Authority. He stood straighter than she had ever seen, his small figure suddenly seeming larger than the space around him. The waitress's breath caught. He wasn't a lost child. He wasn't just a hungry boy with no one to care for him. The realization hit her like the thrum of the blades overhead. The soldiers weren't here to capture him. They were here to bring him home. And she understood, with a cold clarity, that she had been sheltering someone extraordinary, not just someone wanted, but someone remembered. An exiled prince. Her hand twitched toward him, the same hand that had slid plates across counters, that had brushed crumbs from his cheeks. She wanted to grab him, to hold him back, to keep him in the small, safe world of the diner. But the boy didn't look at her this time. He looked at the soldiers, his eyes reflecting both dread and inevitability. For the first time since she'd met him, he wasn't hers.